You're watching KRTV, Channel 3. Live from Great Falls, KRTV, North Central Montana's #1 news station, presents the 10
Joe
o'clock
Schriner may not jump out at you like George W. Bush, John McCain, or Steve Forbes, but the little-known candidate for president is trying to make a name for himself with a grassroots campaign. Last spring, the Schriners sold their home and now live out of a small van, which also doubles as campaign headquarters. Today, they made a stop in Great Falls. Schriner, along with his wife and 2 children, are campaigning for the Republican nomination. They come from a small town in southern Ohio. 8 months ago, the family began its journey across the country, tracing America's roots and meeting its people.
We need to look at what went right and what went wrong with the country at its roots. That's another thing, and one of the things we talk about, there's a lot of reservations in this area, Indian reservations, and we got real aghast with Kosovo earlier this year and what happened with the ethnic cleansing there, but the American people need to look at, we built the country on ethnic cleansing, and we need to own up to that. We need to make significant reparations to Native.
Schreiner's campaign also revolves around convincing Americans to cut back on their consumption of goods, as well as taking more time to be good citizens.
Not many of you know him.
And if you saw him, he would probably remind you of the average Joe. In fact, that's why this man says he's running for president. It just so happens his name is Joe Schriner. Joe is campaigning through the back roads of America with his wife and 2 kids. The Ohio native says he wants less big government and more opportunities for kids. Joe says his reform ideas fall under the Republican Party's early beliefs. When asked if he thinks he stands a chance to win the Republican presidential nomination, he laughs and says,
This is the average Joe runs for president, and I can tell you right now, as we've traveled and we've talked to a lot of the populace, there's a whole lot of people out there right now that are extremely fed up with the political systems the way they are right now, and we represent something totally outside of those systems.
Joe says he and his family would live in urban Washington, D.C. if he's elected president, not the White House. If you would like to learn more about Joe Schreiner's presidential campaign, you can log on to voteforjoe.com.
Presidential candidate visited Pioneer Park in Bismarck today. It wasn't your typical candidate. Republican Joe Schriner, his wife, and 2 small children are traveling the country by way of a small motorhome. And they make whistle stops in small towns where he can talk with the average person and share his campaign message of community spirit.
And as far as the campaign, a lot of our constituency is all on the back roads of America. And so as we travel, those are the people we're connecting with and relying on them, word of mouth wise, to get our message out.
Schreiner's been on the road for 7 months and campaigned in over 20 states now. He said that he can't compete with $37 million campaign funds like that of George W. Bush. He just compared his battle to that of David and Goliath.
We left home with $1,000 in this little motorhome, and we're going to show America that you can get your message out and be just as effective for a whole lot less money. Again, we think that the whole political process, including the elections, have become such an extravaganza that they've really lost a lot of their meaning. There's a lot of glitz right now, and perhaps not that much substance.
Schreiner says that if elected, he'll bring small community solutions to Washington. If you'd like to learn more about Joe Schriner and his presidential campaign, you can visit his website at www.voteforjoe.com.
He's one of 192 presidential candidates. So what makes this one so different? He's a self-proclaimed average Joe from Ohio. Republican presidential candidate Joe Schriner was in Missoula today campaigning. He and his family are making their way west in a motorhome. He says it's one way to show voters he doesn't believe in corporate contributions. Schriner is a pro-life advocate and environmentalist and favors total nuclear disarmament. Schriner says his campaign targets the majority.
There's a whole lot more of them than the people in the elite sector, and we're asking people just to start to consider us.
Schriner says Americans should devote less time to earning money and buying things. Instead, they should spend more time on their children.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Charles Berluti, and welcome to the program, Cross Paths. Tonight, I'd like to welcome as my guest Joe Schriner, who is the Republican Party candidate for President of the United States, along with his wife, Liz.
I'm also a journalist, and for the last 8 years I've been on the roads in America. I've traveled about almost 100,000
researched a lot of grassroots programs that I was providentially led to that I think would tremendously change the face of the country, Charlie, if they were raised to a national level and network. One of the major motivating factors for doing this is you get a couple of kids. There's a 3-year-old and Joseph's a 1-year-old. And as a concerned father, I just don't want the kids growing up in America, Charlie, the way it is right now.
Let me ask you this, Liz. You're not only his wife, but you're his campaign manager also.
Overthought. At a necessity right now. I guess we have a very tight schedule that we operate. We travel in a van, and in close proximity, we need to have that tight schedule, and that provides me with an opportunity to work as well. So my work is to try and put things together as far as media contacts and just the running of the campaign, where we're going and how we're doing it, and map reading, lots of map reading.
Why do you think people should vote for you as President of the United States?
That's a good one. Why would you vote for me again?
Well, I think the reason I would vote for Joe is that I believe in values, I believe in family, and I believe in community. And Joe would seek to implement an administration and policies and legislation that would support all those things.
Joe?
Well, Charlie, she also believes in peace, and I don't think there'd be a lot of peace in a van if she said she wasn't voting for me. You know what, the reason I'm hoping that what I want, Charlie, is a fair chance to get my message out. And I think when people hear the message, it's going to resonate with a lot of people. Because I think, Charlie, right now in this society, we've hit a bottom. In a lot of different areas socially, we've hit bottom, and we need to start to take a look at this whole thing in a different light. And that's what we offer, is looking at this as a traditional American. This is a very unconventional approach, but we believe a lot more God-centered and a lot more sane. It's just gotten nuts out there, Charlie, at this point, and I think that we need to bring a lot more balance back to society in general.
Charlie, one more thing is the media have dubbed Joe as the common Joe for the common good. And I think it's time that we get back to how this country was founded, and that was on the common man being in leadership.
Thank you, Liz. And thank you, Joe.
Thank you. Now, we should get on that we're living right in the midst of a modern-day Holocaust. And we would do everything imaginable to make abortion illegal. And two, what we would do is we would also rally a whole lot of support for women in crisis pregnancy situations in order to get them as much help as possible, not only to sort of adopt the baby, but to adopt the mother and sometimes the father.
What are your feelings on education? If you become President of the United States, what would you do?
Well, we talked about this at Princeton too, Charlie. Right now, the education system is focused primarily on developing skill. And people come out, and we're doing pretty well at it. They come out with a heightened level of skill in a lot of different areas, and so they come out and they enter the workforce, and we've been able to create this tremendous gross national product as a result of it. But, Charlie, again, to go back to what I talked about at the beginning, we're getting a D in life issues with the divorce and the split up of the nuclear family, and just the whole talk about the elderly. One of the things that I see consistently throughout the country is that there's a lot of elderly in nursing homes right now that shouldn't be there. And I think we've become this real quick soundbite society where there's all these people that are older that have this wealth of information about life, and they can pass it on. And our generation now are kind of pushing them aside. And we have a friend that we believe, Charlie, and his platform point is that there needs to be substantial, significant reparations to the Native Americans, for instance. Everybody's been so aghast about Kosovo and what happened over there, and we should be. It was a terrible thing. But I think collectively we have kind of pushed aside and neglected to look at that we built the United States of America on ethnic cleansing. We came along and wiped out the Indians. What we think, Charlie, is right now the country's doing real well economically. It's probably getting an A+, but when it comes to social and life issues such as injustice to the poor in the inner city and a 60% divorce rate, as high as perhaps an 80% infidelity rate at this point, and a whole lot of other crises in those areas, I think we're getting a D, maybe a C- at best. And so what we would ask the American public, Charlie, to start to take a look at is cutting back on lifestyle, slowing things down, taking some of the savings and funneling them into programs for